Right, we're starting at 7, it is 7 p.m, okay? So good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council on this last Tuesday in September, opening at 7 p.m. We are still seated according to COVID restrictions, as you can see, but you are welcome to join us in the chamber foyer to observe and for public question time. Welcome also to those watching from home. You notice we are all wearing masks. If you do attend a meeting, you must currently wear a mask in the gallery. We will be taking masks off as we speak. In fact, I should be doing it now so it's clearer. Please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. Finally, we seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. In the case of an emergency, an alarm will sound and then please follow directions of the staff. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading from this website. Members, please raise your hand to indicate when you wish to speak and use your microphones when speaking. I ask everyone here to turn off your mobile phones or place them on silent during the meeting. A reminder about 3 minutes speaking time and 2 consecutive questions. To everyone present in the chamber and in the foyer, please be respectful of each other and their opinions during these debates and not interrupt the person talking or talk whilst they are speaking. It is important that all views of the elected members are heard before any decisions are made. Thank you. And we will move to the business of the meeting. First of all, we do have 3 apologies tonight. Councillors Piggott, Lemon and Turnbull. No leave of absence. Is there anyone who wishes to declare an interest? No? Right, confirmation of minutes. I seek a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hughes, and seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Carried. Could I ask a question? Well, we have voted, Councillor. You have had plenty of time to ask a question prior to the meeting, but I'll seek the... It's just about where the work started, so... I'll seek clarification. Is the meeting happy for the question to be asked? Okay, right, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's just in relation to the item regarding Thornbury Street in Beulah Park, and I just wondered if the immediate 40 per hour speed limit has been implemented, which the minutes recorded in the motion recorded for Verdun Street, Oban Street and Thornbury Street. And also whether we have spoken to the Department of Infrastructure and Transport to get the full closure going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to refer that to Mr. Kent. Through your worship, we have certainly discussed Council's resolution with DIT, in particular the road closure elements with the project manager associated with DIT, and I understand that that's actually either underway or close to being delivered. With respect to the 40 k's an hour, there has to be a process that we have to follow. I believe I shared that with you last time. We're undertaking that process just now internally, and then we will formally write to DIT to request that change.
Right, we have no adjourned business. Public, we do have some, but they were in the confidential items at the end. We have no public questions or deputations or petitions or presentations. Reports, I will call them out and see if anyone wishes to withdraw any for discussion. 11.1, Bluestone Curving, Councillor Davey. Dulwich Community Centre, Councillor Henschke. Land Management Agreements Compliance Report. No, then I seek a mover. Councillor Dawes? Oh, you'd like to withdraw it? Volunteer Policy and Code of Conduct for Volunteers. If there is no one wishing to withdraw it, Councillor Hughes is moving it. And Councillor Henschke seconding? Or Councillor Hubel was seconding? Okay. So, those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Davey, you didn't put your hand up. Okay, thank you. Library Service Policy. Does anyone wish to withdraw it? If not, then I seek a mover. Councillor Cornish, thank you. Councillor Hubel seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Burnside Retirement Services, appointment of board members. Anyone wish to withdraw it? Failing that, then I seek a mover. Thank you, Councillor Cornish, seconded by Councillor Davis. All those in favour? Carried. Eastern Health Authority Charter, 11.7. Does anyone wish to withdraw it? You happy to move it, Councillor Davey? Seconded, Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Carried. Finance End of Month Report. Do I have someone who wishes to withdraw it? No? You're happy to move it, Councillor Davis? Oh, you want to withdraw it, Councillor Davey? Burnside War Memorial Hospital Constitution Amendment, Councillor Hughes. Sorry? You wish to discuss it, okay. Eastern Health Authority minutes. Anyone wish to withdraw that for this debate? Otherwise, I seek a mover. Councillor Cornish, seconded Councillor Hubel. All those in favour? Carried. Mayor's Activity Report, Councillor Dawes, you're moving it? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Davey. All those in favour? Carried. Chief Executive's Report. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it? Right. So we shall go back to... Pardon? No, we'll do those later. Okay. After we move into confidence. So we're going back now to 11.1, which is Councillor Davey, Bluestone Curving. Could you take your mask off while you're talking, because it's a bit hard to hear sometimes.
Did someone pull the land management agreement?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes. Councillor Dawes.
Oh, thank you.
Right, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the following, that Council adopt the revised Bluestone curbing policy with the addition at 3.1 of, which is on page 12. I just want to include the kilometres of existing. So it means include approximately 14.2 kilometres at September 2021. Page 12. Sorry, delete page 12. I'm just saying that for, yeah. To include approximately 14.2 kilometres at September 2021. So that reads, then, don't need to write this down, but the Council seeks to ensure that existing bluestone curbing of approximately 14.2 kilometres at September 2021 is functional and maintained as far as practicable. I just thought it was worthwhile adding that to put into perspective the very small amount of bluestone curbing which actually exists now in Burnside, as the report outlines, and all of the workshopping and the excellent work that's been done by the staff to date. In all our kilometres of curbing, this is a very small proportion, and I thought just for historical reasons and as a benchmark that it would be advisable to have this actually in the policy, so that it's clear for everyone. So hopefully someone will second that and you'll support it. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Hughes? Speak now.
I'll reserve my right to speak.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if this requires an amendment, but just the wording, the policy currently refers to the heritage conservation zones, and under the new Planning and Design Code, these are now, the heritage conservation zones have been renamed to established neighbourhood zones, brackets, I think it's right, heritage character areas, something like that. Anyway, there's a new way of describing these heritage conservation zones. Well, it's through the... Yeah, so it's through the document. So, for example, on page 6.2.4, it refers where the area lies outside of a historic conservation zone. I believe this description no longer applies, and we have to update this policy for the Planning and Design Code.
I'm just getting an indication from Mr Cant that that will be fixed, right? So you don't have to move a motion in relation to that.
No, oh great.
Right.
And also when we do make that replacement of heritage conservation zone, that we write established neighbourhood zones, bracket, historic character overlay, because that's what the planning and people told me in state planning. We've got to put the bits in the brackets to refer to the layers. Thank you.
So it's not required to be part of the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. And question in section 6, it refers to road resurfacing works, and if we find bluestone curbing, am I right to think that it's only under exceptional circumstances that we would ever remove bluestone curbing, even if we find it beneath bitumen? Because it's not clear what is the definition of excessive, where the 6.2.2, where the thickness of asphalt covering the gutter is excessive. So I suppose the question is, what is excessive? Thank you.
Sorry, Ms Kennedy, would you like to reply?
Through the chair, the policy as it's written doesn't remove any bluestone curbing. It protects all bluestone curbing that is in place. In relation to 6.2, that's talking about buried cobblestone gutters, not the curbing itself. And it's the intent of that point around excessive asphalt is if there is too much on top of the existing gutter, we just can't get the levels right for drainage and for the road surface. So that's why that point's in there. That hasn't changed from the last policy position.
Is there anyone else who wishes to enter the debate? Then I need to go back to you, Councillor Hughes. You don't wish to say anything to second it? No? Okay. All right, now it's back to Councillor Davey then.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I just ask that we put to include from approximately to 14.2 in quotation marks? Thanks. No, at September, sorry. Delete that one. So the whole quote is approximately 14.2 kilometres at September 2021. Thank you. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
All right, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Dulwich Community Centre, and that was Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council approve the renovation of the Dulwich Community Centre in line with the proposed concept design in the 2022-23 draft budget for community consultation, and 2, approve an additional $75,000 operating budget to facilitate detailed designs for the Dulwich Community Centre in the 2021-22 financial year. So thanks to the CEO of Burnside Council, who's led his team with a vision for renovation of the Dulwich Community Centre that, despite the humble condition over the years, it's even been well loved by the community for decades. The community have attended the chamber tonight. They're in the foyer, and they've asked me to express on their behalf how the Dulwich Community Centre is a fundamental feature for all communities in the city of Burnside. As a space for social interaction and the development of social relationships, which can contribute to social capital, a sense of belonging and a sense of community for everyone in the city of Burnside. We have the highest socio-economic status in South Australia, the city of Burnside. However, loneliness is still a risk. With the pandemic, family separations, these are issues of concern. This renovation investment aligns with the principles of social infrastructure development. That is, the renovated centre will be central to the inner city zone catchment and provides equitable access to all users. 2, it promotes flexibility and multiple use. 3, it's accessible, convenient by bus, electric bikes, bicycles or foot. It aligns with the transit-orientated development in the 30-year plan. Encourages human activity and gathering, and that combats loneliness. Finally, a case study research shows it's a preference of users of community facilities to combine their trips with shopping and other activities. And isn't this a perfect place to have a community centre renovated for the future in the Dulwich precinct? We have many centres across the city of Burnside. We need diversity. The architect's design statement was emailed to you as well, elected members. We have an award-winning architect, designed an environmentally conscious concept that we can further develop. Elected members, this is a worthy investment for all people, for the whole of the city of Burnside, and it will continue to show Burnside is the place to be. Thank you for your support on behalf of all the residents of the city of Burnside.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Cornish.
I'll reserve my right to speak if I can.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak now? Councillor Carbone.
I've never understood the love for the Dulwich Community Centre. I never have, and I probably never will. To me, it seems too small, it's in the wrong street, it's in the wrong area, it's probably in the wrong suburb. Having said all that, the residents love it. And sometimes we have to turn aside perhaps our own personal judgment on a particular activity for the sake of our community. And when I think about what we're about to do with the Dulwich Community Centre, I have flashbacks of perhaps a time when I was wrong about identifying the love for a community centre. I never understood the Chelsea cinema. I didn't get it. And as it turns out, I was wrong. I didn't read the writing on the wall. I didn't take the temperature of the community, and I was wrong about the whole thing. And so I'm excited about this. I've seen the plans. I've seen the future for what the community can do with the centre, and I'm very excited. So the community want their Dulwich Community Centre, and that's exactly what they're going to get. So I'm going to back it all the way.
Councillor Davis.
Just had a couple of questions, if that's okay. In relation to, the report talks about the Strength for Life group at the moment potentially relocating. Where's the council administration on that part of things?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Ms Taylor.
Through the chair, Councillor Davis, could you just clarify exactly your question for me, please? Was it, where are they going, or what do we want to do with that?
Can you give me a status update on Strength for Life, which are currently residing at Dulwich Community Centre?
Okay, so Strength for Life initial conversations with them have indicated right from the word go, where they came and did their deputation here, that they were just like a home. Having further conversations with them, they've indicated that they would really enjoy being at the Civic Centre. Part of the philosophy around Strength for Life is the social connection, and the Civic Centre, with its cafe, library and opportunities there, provides a little bit more, I guess, growth for Strength for Life with that philosophy around that connection. So they have highlighted that they would like to come over here, and we have discussed possible spaces with them.
Okay. So that, just to clarify, that's essentially will happen. It's like looking quite probable that
Quite possibly, yes.
Okay. That's the second question. The current users of the Dulwich Community Centre, because my understanding was that Strength for Life was a significant component of the Dulwich user community at the moment. If they were removed as an occupant, what would be, what's its current expected use, I suppose, as is?
It does, through the chair, sorry, it does reduce the occupancy rate significantly, removing Strength for Life. However, with the proposed concept design, we've got quite a few ideas, particularly around disability support agencies. It's a very accessible and all abilities designed concept that would really foster those kind of programs.
I have more questions, but...
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question or speak? I have Councillor Davis two questions. Right, we'll come back to you, Councillor Davis. I haven't put my microphone on. We'll come back to you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Jones, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'll speak. Well said, Councillor Carbone. I am very pleased by your Damascene conversion to the cause of the Dulwich Community Centre. Well said, sir. This is a great little centre. It's very popular with people in the Beaumont ward. It's only 500 metres walk from Linden Park at its closest point. It's very easily accessible from Linden Park and St George's in particular, where the flatter parts of Beaumont ward, where you don't have to walk back up the hill. I've had lots of people contact me from Linden Park and St George's keen to use it. So it's not just for the people of Dulwich, it is genuinely used by everyone. Next door, pretty much across the road, we've got the Glenside development going in. It's going to have 2,500 people living in it. That centre, as far as I can see, doesn't have a community centre. 2,500 people packed in apartments are going to be looking for something like Dulwich to hold their community functions in. So I think that's really exciting. Maybe Strength for Life will go, maybe they won't. Now, my understanding from the elderly people that I've spoken to is they like the wooden floor because it's a lot more forgiving than concrete floor, and we know that's why the karate people like it. We know that's why the flamenco dancers like it. I think once we've done it up, and it is a bit dilapidated, so that will be putting people off. Once it's done up, it's going to be fabulous. I think we're going to get booming use out of it. We know the population of the city of Burnside's growing. It's currently 45,000. We're projected as in this inner city area that we're going to have more people crammed in. So we're going to go up to 45, 50, 55, 60. So we don't want to be giving away these facilities because we'll never get them back. And our population is growing. That's going to lead to more demand for community facilities. So I think it's very wise of the administration to have come up with this excellent plan, and I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Davey, I think I saw your hand go up.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm a bit worried about whether we can afford it in this financial year, because this wasn't in the original budget, was it? And with a whole lot of other unexpected bills coming up, I just wondered if how we would fund this amount, the 75,000K. Thanks.
Through Madam Mayor, I might refer that response to Mr Cooper.
Thank you, through the Mayor. The 75,000, which is the operating budget that's been requested for this financial year, will effectively be an additional budget allocated as part of the quarterly Q1 budget forecast update. Effectively, it will just reduce our operating surplus for the year. The actual capital funding for the project next year, if it goes ahead as part of the draft budget, there is some unallocated capital renewal budget that's allocated in next financial year of $2.5 million, which would cover this particular project if it gets approved.
Is there anyone else who Councillor Hughes?
Apologies, I didn't get to ask this of the staff earlier, but I'm just in my mind trying to understand what would we necessarily go and consult the community on the concept design before it goes into the budget? Just things like Tusmore Pool and things like that, where we had some options. We went out and asked the community around the concept before we then proceeded. So I just wanted to, I guess, seek clarification around the reasoning and when would the only consultation be that draft budget as opposed to before?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Ms Taylor. Happy for Mr Cant to relate if he wants to.
That's all right. So through the Chair, Council was quite definitive in regards to their resolution around the redevelopment and their, I guess, their instructions to proceed with a concept design. So that's the process that we undertook. There will be, I guess, further public and community consultation through the budget process. We put it in through that budget bid. We are more than welcome and happy to hold an information night for the community to come and attend and ask any questions if that would be suitable.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship, and Nina Marnie, everyone. Greet you all. Look, I like these community facilities. I like it when private organisations promote themselves, like bowling clubs and the like, activating community spaces, and I think it's even better when we do it. I think that's one of our most important jobs. This will be a good facility to have. Look, I like, there's money unallocated funds there ready for us to go. I'd be really hesitant on stalling too much. One reservation I do have, and I guess you could just take this as a comment, I'm really keen to see some more plans about how we are, or some more details about how we're planning to activate the centre, more so than it is now. Obviously, the design needs to be, in concrete, and the design needs to be set before we can start, really imagining and engaging with people directly on using the space. But look, I think we're heading in the right direction. But I am really keen to see how we're going to boost this up.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I just make a point that we have actually provided a lot of community input already into this project, and we've had deputations from community members at our council meetings in relation to this particular project as well. We haven't had, I don't remember very much that was actually negative about this development. Correct me if I'm wrong. That seems to have been, and I think we have an amazing increase in demand for facilities from our community, and not only active recreation, but passive recreation. And this particular facility provides both. Marvellous dance floor, wonderful facilities that will provide some kind of communal space if you are prepared to continue to support this project. Henschke, question?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'll come back to you, okay?
Just a question to the administration to clarify. I'm hearing questions about, Councillor Hughes said, how do we know, have we consulted enough with the community? The requirements of the community will be also looked at in the detailed design phase to an extent, and with the operational handover process under our project management framework, that's where we would address, am I right, that Councillor Hubel's question about the activating the centre? It's all part of that project management framework what the administration have. So,
thank you, Madam Mayor. Two parts to that question. The first one is the existing user groups were consulted heavily about their design requirements, this new build. And the second part, take Councillor Hubel's comments, relate to the fact that with a new facility, we'll be doing everything in our power to ensure we maximise occupancy percentages. And so I know Ms Taylor's already got a number of strategies in mind to work with the existing users and to work with some new identified users so we can ensure that this expenditure that council may put into this facility is a good return on investment for the community.
Councillor Davis.
In terms of our community space, what's the use target per, for our community facilities? So what are we aiming for?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Ms. Taylor.
Through the Mayor. Sorry, can you hear me? Yep. I don't have a specific high-level target. However, they would certainly need to improve with where they are at the moment. I think COVID's played a significant impact on that currently. We're certainly looking at developing, well, we are currently developing activation plans for each individual site. And each individual site brings its own, I guess, opportunities and expectations as well. So I would certainly like to see the figures over 50%. And I would like to see that if the centre was built, it would be activated for all hours possible.
When you talk about, and in the report it talks about the percentages for use, how many people, like is that a percentage of people capacity, or like say if there's 20 people in one facility, say using the ballroom, and there's say 1 or 2 people using a different space, how is the percentage calculated?
Through the Mayor, the percentage is calculated on hours used. So it's manually calculated just at the moment. So if, say, it's available to be booked from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. and it's only used for an hour, that's the calculated hour that we use for occupancy rates.
How many, if I keep going, if there's no one else, feel free to jump in. Yeah. If you take the Strength for Life component out of the current Dulwich Community Centre, how many people would use that in a week? Like how many individual visits would you get in a week at the moment?
Through the Mayor, there's another additional 3 community groups that would use it. I don't know exactly how many numbers they get because they're private programs, so on each night, but it would certainly, it brings the occupancy rate down if you remove Strength for Life. But apologies, I can't tell you exactly how many people, but I could certainly tell you how many community groups.
How many community groups then do we
There's
count?
3.
So there's, okay.
Can I just ask, at the moment, I believe Strength for Life take up something like 13 hours a week, minimum. So
Correct.
the opportunity for any other group in those 13 hours is negligible. So that has to be considered.
Sorry, is that a comment or a question?
No, just a comment.
Oh, okay. Can I ask, in terms of, what's the, because we've got 2 other facilities in terms of Tregenza Oval and Kensington Gardens Reserve that have currently been funded by council and that commitment's been made. Have we done any kind of projection in terms of what their use rate would be in addition to the inclusion of Dulwich? So what's our target, I suppose, across the board for all those facilities, and what's our benchmark?
Through your worship, to answer that last question reasonably briefly, no, we haven't done targeted projections for either of those 2 facilities. The first Kensington Gardens Reserve is still in seeking funding, stage and state funding, so we're not at the process there where we're ready to even commence the build, finish detailed design. With regards to Tregenza, the club have committed to additional community use and expanding community use, but it won't be a council-run facility. It will still be a club-run facility, and they will use us to support them in increasing community use, but we won't have a particular target as one of our community venues. As Farley said, though, as we take on these new facilities, it's appropriate that we have unique community activation plans for each facility. So we're able to target the appropriate use and the different uses for each of our facilities and target the appropriate use for each, and then set a target on a yearly basis that we could then seek to improve on year.
Have we thought about state and federal funding for this particular project? Have we sought that? Is that what we'd be looking to commit, the 25% funding rate in line with the rest of the council? Or would we be looking to fund the whole thing? What's the strategy? Because don't we have a policy in terms of these types of community facilities?
Through Madam Mayor. My understanding that 25% is where a body is coming to council and seeking council to fund their expansion, whereas this is a project that council's undertaking in its own right. But in context, in the report...
we've got three bodies approaching us for funding, right? Well, the project, three bodies are approaching us to develop Dulwich Community Centre.
No.
Well, the current community groups that are there.
No. Council has made a decision that they're pursuing this redevelopment in their own right. Okay. But having said that, in the report, you'll note we've made a comment that, of course, we'll be seeking as much federal and state funding as we can obtain.
Yeah.
But at this stage, we haven't identified the source of that funding. But if this is approved, of course, we'll pursue it.
Can I ask a final question in terms of...
Councillor Davis, you have held the floor for a long time.
Yeah.
I do need to find out if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, and then I'll come back. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Councillor Davey, I think.
Councillor Davey, sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm not clear about the occupancy rates across council and how whether they've all been mapped, particularly with, and I know we've had some changes and interruptions with the COVID situation, but in view of the fact that we have got so many new centres coming online, we've also got the town hall upstairs. I haven't actually seen us map what future users and future capacity we've got for such centres and how they can be used. Is that going to be done, or is there some way we can do that?
Through Madam Mayor, it's certainly a priority for us going forward to maximise the use of all of our community facilities. So you'll note at paragraph 37 where we've looked at the current occupancy rates for those key facilities there. Now, I'm currently working with Ms Taylor and her team to make it a priority for us to look to maximise utilisation. My estimation is going forward that we'll see those rates increase. I can't give definitive figures. Having said that, we know there's opportunities that exist to potentially increase them, because we should be looking to maximise the use of our facilities, no question. So it is a commitment of mine going forward to try and increase those.
So anyone else who wishes to ask a question or to speak? Councillor Cornish, you haven't yet seconded officially.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I do support the motion as it stands, and completely think that this is some time coming. So I'm very happy with the concept that we do have. I've noted a bit of conversation about usage and targets and community use, but without knowing potentially what we're going to use Glenunga Hub for. We only had 5 clubs, but they weren't the community space, they were the sports clubs. And that centre is activated completely afterwards to the fact that it's overflowing, and you get complaints from people having to park too far away to go and do a yoga class there. And this centre provides a different alternative. We need variety in our community centres, from those that are large and can cater large people, and the smaller groups. And this one I quite like, has an artistic focus to it, with the little stage there. It's local. It's not going to be too disruptive for the neighbours, which I think is a great component of the concept design. I feel that it embodies that essence of what a community centre should be about. It's small. It's for that local community. And Councillor Jones mentioned the increase of population nearby, and I'd imagine it will get utilised more and more as the years go on. So I've got no problem with the usage. A little disappointed in terms of, I suppose, reading the stats in the town hall having such low stats at the moment, given the amount of money invested upstairs in comparison to even the Dulwich Community Centre at the moment. So, but I'm all for supporting the maximum usage that we can get out of these community centres, and I hope you support the motion to get this centre done.
Thank you. I would like to thank the staff, because I have asked a significant number of questions, so thank you for their responses over the last few days. Look, I will like to speak against the motion.
Excuse me, don't interrupt, please. Could you just leave Councillor Hughes to...
That's fine. So I will speak against the motion, and I guess the reason that I have is not just to do with the occupancy rates, because I do see that as an opportunity. But when this was all proposed, the key users really that items have been designed around, and this is through no fault of staff, simply by users looking for alternate options. So I think, the theatre bugs, it's very unfortunate that they've left, and perhaps they've left because our facilities aren't actually to a suitable standard. So I appreciate that change, and that's not something that our staff could control. But the bulk of the speakers that we heard, and the Mayor mentioned about the deputations that we got, and she was very correct, most of them were actually relating to Strength for Life. And if Strength for Life are looking to relocate, then I think we really need to think about whether we should be investing. And I actually think now is the time to go and ask the community. And I know that many people have spoken this evening about this is what the community wants. We had a number of deputations, people who said, oh, we should just maintain it and jazz it up. I've actually pulled up the 2017 community survey report, which I asked for back when we did the initial debate. And one of the questions under 4.2 was, do you support the option to renovate the site and maintain the existing footprint? 49% said said yes, and 51% said no. So if we are looking to renovate, and everyone is basing it on the fact that the community have supported this, the most recent survey that we did asking that specific question didn't actually get a positive response, and that's why I actually didn't support this initially, because I think we should go back with what we've proposed and ask the question to the community, are you happy to invest this money in this location at this point in time? Because I think what the staff have presented, I think is a great facility. I think it really, really is. I think there's lots of opportunity there, but I think to put something like this in the budget at this point, without going back with that 2017 result in mind, which was actually my understanding was that was the last community survey that was done on this site. So that is why I wouldn't support this motion as it stands. I'm happy to go out to the community, share the information and the great work that the staff have done and ask them the question rather than sneaking it through the budget process. So I did have one other point, but the bell has distracted me and I've forgotten what it was. Don't often make the bell. Look, I'll just leave it at that. But I think, the work that's been done has obviously been done very well. I appreciate that, but I do think we should go out and just ask now rather than investing a whole heap of extra time and money, because despite the fact, that's what I was going to say. One of the questions that I actually asked, that's all right. I'll just have to sleep on it.
All right, Councillor Davis, Davey. Davis, I was right the first time.
That's right, we look the same. Can I move an amendment and I've sent it to the CEO?
Is there sufficient number to...
Yeah, there is.
Support it? Only Mike? Councillor Dewars.
This was the one I just sent you. No, not that one. Yep.
Through Madam Mayor, it's up on the screen there now, Councillor Davis.
Yep, thank you. Can I just read it, Your Worship?
You need to read it because people at home won't be able to.
Is anyone watching at home? So point 1, approve the renovation of the Dulwich Community Centre in line with the proposed concept plans in the 22. Can we make that 2022/23 draft budget for community consultation? 2, request the administration prepare a report to support the budget 2022/23 budget community consultation, detailing occupancy rates across council community venues, strategies to increase community rates across all council community venues, specific interactions between proposed renovated Dulwich Community Centre and all other council community venues, and target occupancy rates for all facilities. And 3, include funding to facilitate the detailed designs for the Dulwich Community Centre in the 2022/23 draft budget for community consultation. Could I add a point 4, that the current proposed design go out for community consultation in the 21/22 financial year? Or the proposed design?
Madam,
No, it's not an amendment. I was thinking the same thing and I was just looking over to governance. It's a completely new motion, isn't it? Well, I've asked governance for their decision on this. I don't make the decision, they do, okay?
Have they?
the other point I was going to add, Councillor Davis, is the point 4 about going to community consultation 21/22. The problem with that is if that then changes at all, points 1 and 3 become
I don't think so, because the draft budget always goes out to community consultation. So draft budget always goes for community consultation regardless. So this is taking a specific community consultation.
Okay, I was just taking the view that if it's in line with the proposed concept design, which is X amount of dollars, and then if the community come back and say that, sorry, we want something that's twice that or half that,
yeah,
you would then have to revisit it again.
That's right, yeah, we would.
Through the Mayor, governance view is that this isn't an amendment.
Okay.
It does change the financial year for the operating budget to do the detailed designs, and it doesn't specify the amount that's been allocated here in the first recommendation.
No worries.
You've also got the issues with the caretaker period approaching next year as well, so it is quite different from what's there at the moment. So we would recommend that this is run as an alternate motion.
Okay.
So your recommendation is that this is run as an alternative motion if the first motion is lost?
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. I'll speak against this motion. And you've seen my proposed alternative motion. In my view, I think we've done this for a number of years. It's been on the community's agenda forever. And I don't think we've ever gotten it right. And I don't think that the fact that it's just been sitting there means that we should rush and try and screw it up in many ways. So from what I'm hearing is our major tenant for the site, Strength for Life, is going to be leaving. We should then as a council consider what are going to be our new target occupants, who's going to be in there, and if you read the report, you don't know who it's going to be. You don't have the information to understand who's going to be the target, who's the use case, do we need a stage there, what's the current target occupancy rates for it, and how many users are we going to look to get there. Now, I remember in the last council decision when we discussed this, we spoke about the proposed costs around it, and this is a huge cost. This is massive, and we know what that cost is. It's actually huge when you actually consider how much Glenunga Hub costs to build, and if you put this up next to it, then you should really consider the use case there. I also don't think that it's right that we spend money before we ask the community on what that consultation should, on what the proposal should be. So if we're going to run a consultation and ask our community, which I think will be a useful process, and I'm sure the community will, finalise that design, but before we spend money doing the detailed design, spending $75,000, surely it makes sense that we would ask our community what they think. So my alternative motion would simply be to do that community consultation first before we spend the money, rather than to push it into this budget. And I know that this council has been critical in the past of trying to push additional funding into a current financial year. I think that it would be prudent for us to continue with it, and I understand the desire to push forward with doing something on this site. I think it's absolutely needed, and I know that we have 3 community groups that use it at the moment. But to be honest, if you're honest with yourselves, you don't know how many people are using this. It's not in that report, and we don't have that information, nor do we understand the use case. We don't necessarily understand the need for a stage or all those other facilities, or whether this is the best use for our community, depending on what it is that we actually want to use this for. So I think we should at least run the community consultation first, and then proceed to, and my alternative motion does commits it to the budget. However, it asks for that further information that I think we're all missing. So it's not a divergence from the current proposal, but it's doing the community consultation first, put it into the budget, and ask for some additional information so we can continue on this with confidence. So I would suggest you vote it down and let me run the alternative motion.
Councillor Carbone, you wish to ask a question?
Thank you, Worship. Question to the CEO, if I can, who speaks on behalf of all staff relevant in this area. Build it and they will come. That comment rings true for the hub. That comment rings true for the shed.
Don't interrupt.
Well, okay, I'll run a point of order.
It's not a point of order. It's only a question.
No, I'll run a point of order. Not a point of order. Well, I get to run one anyway. Pursuant to when we ask questions, it needs to be to the point, and we discuss this that it's not for 3 minutes. It's asking a question, not making a speech.
It has not been in 3 minutes. He's made a comment and the question is coming right now.
Every meeting, Your Worship.
Sorry, other councillors speak for longer than that prior to asking a question. It's happened already tonight.
Oh, Your Worship, it's because it's me. If it was anyone else over here, it wouldn't be a problem.
Just get on with your question.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. But the question to the CEO, build it and they will come. This comment rings true for the hub. This comment rings true for the shed. Will this comment ring true for the new Dulwich Community Centre?
Through Madam Mayor, the way I'll answer that question is that if you think about the Dulwich Community Centre in its current state, that in itself is not conducive to attracting new tenants. One thing I do know is that we've had high regard for what we believe are the optimum community uses for the plan that's in front of you. And I am of the opinion that we will significantly increase our occupancy rates going forward for a couple of reasons. One, it will be a purpose-built facility, which will have excellent amenities, which is one of the major limitations at the minute. And we've had regard for some of the elements, such as the dance floor at the back, which the community spoke eloquently about how important that was to them. So I feel that we've retained the important aspects and added to that. I can't give you a figure on what the ultimate occupancy will be, because I don't know that, but I am certain we will significantly increase the occupancy rates, and my team will do their best to drive a positive financial result for the council, and also in terms of our community use.
Now, I believe everyone except Councillor Dawes has spoken. Oh, you have another question? You haven't, Councillor Davey? Sorry. No, you haven't. All right, so do you wish to speak now?
Thank you. I want to thank the staff for all the work they've done through the years, because it's been a long process to ascertain how we can best use Dulwich Community Centre. So there has been a lot of work done to inform the discussion we're having. I remain very concerned about how we are utilising our facilities, and I can't in my mind see how we can map the current and future facilities to fit this in and to make sure we get best use of this. So my greatest concern is this the best use of the space? So I would be happy, and I'm also very concerned about financials and adding this to our budget lines this financial year. We have a whole lot of significant commitments coming up, and while I accept the reassurances of the staff, we don't have a surplus. We don't have that much money in terms of adding new projects at this time of the year. So I think it would be beneficial for us to go out to the community based on the information we currently have and determine exactly what the community would support in terms of this. I acknowledge it's a lovely venue, a lovely site, but there are pros and cons about how it can be used and the implications for that corner of a residential area. So I would support the motion, if this is voted down, the alternate motion that Councillor Davis is proposing for community consultation at this stage. Thanks.
It's only Councillor Dawes now who I think has not spoken. Do you wish to speak at all, Councillor Dawes? Otherwise I'll go back to Councillor Henschke.
I can't add anything further to the discussion, so I won't say anything further.
All right, then I shall go back to the mover of the motion. That was Councillor Henschke.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. It's nice to get the mask off. Okay, gosh, we're going back to data, which is nice, you know, how many, the occupancy of various centres we have, and that's very sound. But look, hang on, aren't we? We're not comparing apples with apples, are we? When we look at all those statistics, if you try and compare why people will go to the hub and the occupancy there and compare that to the occupancy at Dulwich, well, Dulwich is pretty disadvantaged because today the light globes had to be changed. It's that bad. So it's doing pretty good, that little humble neighbourhood house, you know, thanks Daisy Salotti for donating it and her estate. And so we need to remember, hang on, the data's not always saying the right thing here. Last time, do you remember all those flamenco dancers that came here in the chamber? How passionate they were about that timber floor? Well, this design celebrates that. This architect has done a brilliant job at renovating this site and under the leadership of the council, the administration, to retain that Daisy Slotty site. It's not about strength of life, it's about that room, that beautiful flamenco room. And this architect has added value to that site by creating new spaces that are multi-use. We have, in the foyer I mentioned earlier, some residents. Now these residents are actually leaders in the community, leaders of a new association called the East Residents Association. Already they have 100 members, and they have already met with the Mayor and the CEO and expressed their interest to be involved in the use. So it doesn't take very long until people start hearing about a new centre and they want to get involved. Exactly what Councillor Jones said, and Councillor Cornish and Councillor Carbone. It's a fabulous site. Let's get on with it. You know what? Sadly, if I want to add up all the project development costs to date, since you started talking about Dulwich Community Centre for the last 5 years, I reckon that'd add up to about several tens of thousands of dollars. For a project of this size, let's just cut to the chase and not stop wasting money for more reports on shelves. We've done all the consultation. The administration have worked hard. They want to get on with it. Let's get on with it for the people of the City of Burnside, all the people of the City of Burnside. And there goes the bell. But more than ever, we need this now. Thank you, everyone, for the amazing debate. It is really helpful and very healthy to debate this way, but let's support this, please. Thank you.
Right, I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So the land management agreements compliance, that's Councillor Dawes, I think, who withdrew it.
Go to page 35, and I've got to just put that up myself. And I've changed number 2. So number 1 is notes the options for managing land management agreements and supports option 2 of a random, and I put up to 10% audit, including those involving tree preservation, of a report back to Council on its results at the December 2021 Council meeting. And the reason why I have put December 2021, because they can do 1 to 2 audits a week according to the report. 10% of 125 is about 12, so let's say that's 6 weeks, so I think we can get a report back. The problem I had is, well, I'll go back one. Let's read paragraph 43 on page 55, if we could. And it worried me. I actually cringed when I read that particular paragraph. I'm not blaming the staff for what they've written. What they've written is correct, but this is not the council that I know. The council, in my opinion, should be proactive, and I'm pleased that the staff have been honest and have said that we are reactive. We don't do anything unless there's a complaint. We've already had before this chamber in this council term 2 times where a land management agreement hasn't been followed. I looked at the other options, and with the other options, there was one with full audit, which was 2 years to do, and one with external assistance, it's 40,000. And I thought, well, I'd love to do that, or I would really love to do that, but I'm thinking we can do it internally. And I don't know where these 125 land management agreements are like the couple that we've had before. I'd like to see what a small percent, I think 5% is a bit too small. 5% of 125 is 6. So I'm saying up to 10%. And I'm also saying in this motion that it should include those that involve tree preservation, because those have come to us before. We've lost a couple of trees and didn't even know that we'd lost a couple of trees. So I'm hoping that you'd support this slight change to the motion. It was proposed by the staff as an alternative, but I do want to get away from us being reactive and us being more proactive in these areas. So I'll stop it there and see what the debate follows. Thank you.
CEO wishes to make a comment.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can just provide a comment to that motion. Since the report was written, we've had a look at option 2 and reviewed the cost of the previous LMA audit of it, and we think that option would cost between 7,000 and 10,000. So if this, with this motion, I'd like to ask Council's consideration to allocating 7,000 to 10,000 out of this current financial year, only in view of the fact that I normally would seek to provide to find the money, but having driven over $1 million worth of savings through the budget already, I am very tight. And I just need Council to be clear what they're asking me to spend.
So it can't be done internally, is that what you're saying?
I'll get Mr. Cooper to just give me his advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Yes, the random audit could be done by with internal staff, absolutely. No external consultants will be required for that. But as recent experience has shown, the LMAs often require legal expertise, and our estimate, which is backed up by the results of the last audit, suggests we would need between $7,000 and $10,000 worth to cover legal costs associated with that 10% audit.
You wish to second this motion or ask a question? Seconding the motion, Councillor Davis. All right. Do you wish to hold your opportunity till later? Councillor Davey, you have a question or wish to speak?
I wish to move an alternate motion.
I wanted to clarify that first before we just follow with Councillor Davey.
Through Madam Mayor, I would appreciate it if Council did include it, because that gives me the authority to spend the money. Without that there, I'm going to be finding money I don't have.
So if you said up to $10,000?
Yes, that would be appreciated.
Are you happy with that, both councillors? All right, so if we could include in there up to $10,000. Legal. For legal fees. Now, Councillor Davey.
I wish to move an alternate motion, which I've sent through to you, Bronnie. She's not listening. Could you put up my alternate motion, please?
If I may, Madam Mayor, just sought some guidance from governance. If it's an amendment, we could consider it now. If it's an alternate motion, you must wait until this motion has been dealt with, or lost, sorry, and then you're able to move your alternate.
Because we already have a motion that's been moved and seconded, so this would need to be lost unless it's just a minor amendment to this particular motion.
No, it's for a different option.
You'll need to wait until this has been debated and voted on.
So I'll speak against it then.
Okay.
I actually think, and I thank Councillor Dawes for his motion and his consideration of it, I actually think that we need to undertake a full audit of our land management agreements. As we've found, we have issues associated with those brought to us from time to time. And on the last occasion in March, we realised we didn't know the extent and the status of most of our LMAs across Burnside. The report is very informative, so it gives us a really good idea of the extent of them. So far, 421 have been identified. It seems, and from my years on council, my experience is that many of these are associated with development across Burnside. And it's particularly with the land divisions that are proposed by developers for our mansions and our large established old homes. when they were being demolished. So one of the reasons these were negotiated and signed were due to pressure from the local community, the local and the broader community, and they're mostly designed to preserve significant and historic old trees. So you'll see from the listing in the report, many of them do identify that they were for tree preservation, or, as well as individuals, tracts of trees. So this is the case with Holton Brook House, which is at 347 Glenburn Road. This is outlined on page 45. If anyone's driven past there, it's quite a classy use of a big tract of land, but the feature of it is the magnificent old river red gums that were preserved for this development there, and were, I think, part of the land management agreement. We don't know the health of the trees, but it's imperative that we check on them, as an example. There's also Gartrell Street at Burnside, where Fernley Lodge was demolished. There's Cooper's Brewery site in Stattenborough Street and Stanley Street, Leabrook, with all the particulars for that land management agreement, which was also significant. It was land use associated with specific use for the area, which was for retirement homes. There's also Clifton Manor Estate, the land division in 1976, with lots of tree preservation there. The Wilson subdivision on Tusmore Avenue. So I think in governance terms, and part of our responsibilities under the Local Government Act, we really need to have a proper evaluation of our LMAs in place and that the requirements are being followed, as designated in the agreements on their titles. It's one of our responsibilities under Section 8F, Principles to be Observed by Council, where we must ensure a proper balance in our community between economic, social, environmental and cultural considerations. We really need to know the status of all of these LMAs in Burnside, so I hope you'll support vote this motion down and allow me to put up option 4 and make that investment of 40K to start the process to review these. Thank you.
Do I have anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Hughes.
I'll speak. I'm happy to support Councillor Dorr's motion. I think this is a good starting point, and although I don't necessarily disagree with Councillor Davies' sentiment that it's worth following up on all of these, I think doing a reasonably random but prioritised sample will then provide us with enough information that we can make a decision before going and spending all of the money. We can go, all right, well, we've got reasonable compliance, or actually we've got no compliance. We should go across the board and look at all of them. So I think this is a fair compromise, a reasonable place to start, and then we can make a plan following that in December.
Councillor Henschke.
Question, is this audit on the list of the audit committee?
Through Madam Mayor, I stand corrected, but I don't believe it is at the moment.
And question, following up on that, then can we just do that, get the audit committee program to put this list audit on it on the list instead of having to amend the motion? Or?
Through Madam Mayor, if I'm understanding, you're saying should this be referred to the audit committee to put on their audit list? My honest opinion is I would treat this separately. I wouldn't refer it to the audit committee. I think this is a process that can stand independent.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I have some clarification, please, about how the sample trees under this motion would be determined, or the sample land management agreements would be sampled?
Through Madam Mayor, my understanding is it'll be a random sample, but I'll seek some further clarification, Mr. Cooper, if he has it.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, you'll see from the analysis in the report that we have a high level information about what the LMAs relate to. So those that are marked with reference to protection of trees will obviously fit into the priority. So my suggestion would be that we group those together, and from those we select a random sample of the 10% to achieve the data we need for the report in December.
Right, Councillor Davis, do you wish to speak now?
I think that a 10% audit will not overburden the staff, and I think that it will give us an appreciation of what's there. And I'm sure that they'll go through a random sample, and we'll have like 10% is a significant amount, I would think. So I think it's 120, right? So even if half of them, we're actually looking in terms of tree protection, it actually might be higher than say 10%. I think in terms of the building ones, well, geez, what are you going to do if they have gone outside their agreements there? And I think then the second thing to ask ourselves is this will probably open up a massive can of worms. So if there are building things, then we're going to have a whole bunch of questions. Not that I'm trying to avoid it, but it seems to me that it could be, let's do a small sample size, see how much non-compliance there is, and then how we want to deal with it. Because we might actually want to stagger this over a number of years rather than doing it all in one hit. So we might say that every year we're going to put these on a rotation and do 20% of them or something like that once we have a better appreciation of it. I'm hoping that we don't need to spend the $10,000 in legal fees, because it seems to me, I mean, we should be, I don't know, they've asked, I understand the administration have asked for that, but it seems to me that we can determine whether, at a layman's view, I suppose, not that lawyers, look at trees very often, but whether there's been a breach or not, and then bring back that back to council. So perhaps we could actually do like a brief summary and then go forward and go and get some more legal advice, because I think that could definitely spin out. If you're looking, like if you're starting to get legal advice and the technical decision making, if it's not clear, then it's probably going to be a long letter of advice whether there's a technical breach or not as well. So perhaps I would suggest that we just do an overarching, do we think that there's a problem, and then bring that back to council to let us know, rather than going and asking solicitors, because I think that they will provide you with a very long advice on a complicated matter. So, but I think 10% is good, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? You've got another question, Councillor
I have another question. Could I just clarify, is this 10% of the 421 properties or 10% of the 125 different LMAs? Outlined on page 40, paragraphs 32 and 33.
Through the Mayor, thank you. The 10%, as far as I'm concerned, would relate to the 125 LMAs rather than the individual properties that make those up.
If it's open for interpretation, do you think it should be in the motion?
Through the Mayor, yes, happy for that to be clarified.
I go back then to Councillor Dawes and Councillor Davis to ensure that the number that is being the 10% of is clear for administration to follow up, if we could include that in there.
I'm happy to do so. A land management agreement can occur over a couple of properties, as we know. So 10%, up to 10% of total LMAs.
Yes.
Yep.
Are you okay with that too, Councillor Davis? Right, good. That's okay with you too now, Mr. Cooper? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Jones.
I agree with Councillor Dawes' motion that, yes, it's a good start. I have to say that I do agree with Councillor Davey as well, that I really would like to see them all checked, because I think they're a valuable addition to our planning controls. I know that's not a universally held opinion in this room, but I think it's good, and I think the reason they were put there is because they're tougher than the planning laws, and the planning laws are crap, frankly, and anything that we can do to improve on them is a good thing. So 10% is a good start, so, it's better than nothing. I do really feel that there are some low-hanging fruit here that we could bang on the head with pretty minimal effort, like not to subdivide. I mean, how long would that take to check? About 5 minutes, surely. So if there's anything that you can just knock off quickly, in addition to the 10%, I would be very appreciative.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, then I will go back to Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davis, for your support. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I did ask Mr Cooper of our LMAs, and you've all got that copy of that email, how many were, like I didn't know there were 1950, 1960, but I was surprised that more than 60% were 2010 onwards. So they're relatively new. So I think, oh dear me, there must be a way we can do it. I acknowledge the passion of Councillor Davey here, but I believe that this random order just will inform our next step. Because what I can see happening, we get our report in December, and then we think, aha, there are some problems here. We need to put a budget item in for 2022-23. That was the process I was thinking in my head. So I hope you will support it, and it may be that we do get eventually to what Councillor Davey is saying. Thank you.
Right, I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. And I think it is a good idea of yours, both Councillor Dawes and Councillor Davis, that this sets a benchmark for us, and that a series of follow-ups are also a really good idea, subject to the report that comes. It's 11.8, that's on page 158, the finance end of month report. It was Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm happy to move in accordance with the recommendation that Council receives and notes the August 2021 financial report. I just had a query of the administration, and thank you, it's the usual thorough report, and it's always very good to see. In paragraph 13 on page 159, when do we measure the savings target, and when can we spend the savings? Might be
Through Madam Mayor. I think the best way, I'll explain how we're going at achieving those savings. So what the team have done since the budget was adopted, I've actually asked the team to go through their budgets and essentially cut out the 1.137 million from their budgets. So in essence, I have already realised that saving. Now, admittedly, my team will have to work hard to deliver those lower budgets. So there is no loose cash lying around as a result of that saving, because Council adopted a budget assuming those savings are realised. So I've asked the team to reduce their budgets right now rather than incrementally work on them during the year. So if by some miracle we can achieve something above 1.137 million, then Council has some additional funds that they are able to expend. But at this stage, that saving is actually meeting the budget you adopted this financial year. So I'm sorry, Councillor Davey, there is no loose money lying around as a result of that figure. Yeah.
So do I have a seconder? Councillor Dawes? Right. Don't wish to speak. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Davey. Do you wish to speak again, Councillor Davey? Right, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Hughes. 11.9, Councillor Hughes.
I have sent an alternate motion. Sorry, it was very late. So I hope this is clear, and I hope that this is okay with administration, because I didn't really I floated the second part, but perhaps didn't get the wording through. So if there's anything as I read out that is of concern, please let me know. But essentially that Council retain the current constitutional requirement of 2 medical practitioners, that council work with the Burnside Hospital to update the constitution such that there is provision to allow the board to operate for a 6-month period with one medical practitioner if they are required to replace an unexpected resignation or other situation where they are left with only one medical practitioner. Sorry, I should lose the S on the end. So my reasoning for this is the motion and the proposed amendment that was sent to us still stated that there would be at least one medical practitioner. Now, although the board said they would appoint 2, the constitution would then only state that you would only have to have at least one, which could then still leave you in the... And I know, you know, things change, people leave, people move on, and then you get someone who interprets the constitution and says, oh, look, we only need to have one. And given that it is a medical facility, I'm assuming that there's very good reason for us or for the constitution to say that there should be 2 medical practitioners. So to change that, I guess, in my mind, doesn't make a lot of sense. But what I think does make sense is to give the board the opportunity to have a grace period where they can actually go, they can operate and then go out and replace that person on the board without necessarily being in breach of their constitution. And I appreciate there'll potentially need to be some legal work around that to get that to work so that the provision essentially covers that they could operate if that is the case. So I guess my thought process when I read that was saying at least one medical practitioner still puts you in the position where if you did by, you know, in 5 years' time only have one medical practitioner, you would be in exactly the same position that you are now. Well, that the scenario that played out now where they had 2 and then were down to 1 by unforeseen circumstances. So I guess this is my attempt to try and create a situation or a scenario where we would be covered if there were unforeseen circumstances. And I'm happy. Does that make sense?
I just want to ask a question. Is it the role of Burnside Council to work with the Burnside Hospital to update the constitution? I just wanted to get the nomenclature correct.
I think, through me, Mayor, I think Councillor Hughes has got this just about right. There's just one minor tweak I'd like to suggest. And I'm just having reference to page 171, where it talks about, and I'll just read an amendment to the Constitution, provided that the Council has granted its approval. So I'm suggesting that for the second one, that Council approve an update to the Constitution, such that.
Okay, so it doesn't have to come back if they can come up with a provision that meets that criteria.
So in essence, what that would achieve, if this gets up, what that would achieve is that Council will have always given its approval to what's been proposed, and if the board is comfortable, they amend the Constitution and the work goes on without needing to come back to Council again.
I'm very happy with that. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone.
Okay, I need a seconder. Councillor Dawes, do you wish to speak now?
No, but I just want to, I will second it if we can just say operate up to a 6-month period. I just want to, rather than 4 6 months. If Councillor Hughes is happy with that, I'm happy to second, but I will retain my speaking rights. Okay.
Right, Councillor Davis, you wish to speak? You've been on the board, so...
Yeah, I'll speak against the motion. I mean, it doesn't quite say it in the report, but I think we're making a number of assumptions here. So first of all, the board of the Burnside War Memorial Hospital is a volunteer board, and it takes a number of hours, for every meeting. And I know that they have there's a significant obligation in relation to practitioners being on the board. Now, the way that the hospital works is that doctors have lists or surgeons have lists. Now, they might have lists at a number of different hospitals, and so their efforts in terms of it isn't just at one hospital. So they might have a list at Burnside, a list at Calvary, a list at St Andrews, or they have a number of different lists around the state. So I think and I've spoken with the CEO about this, and their challenge is actually and she's a registered nurse as well, so she's come through that process, and I believe the other board members have that background as well, the other executives have that as well. The difficulty for them is to find a practitioner who is willing to commit that significant amount of time to a community hospital for no pay, and also where they might have interests in other hospitals. So it takes a very specific, I think, practitioner to actually want to go into and adopt the risk of the governance of a hospital. And the directorships do have significant risk as well. So the agendas that you receive are similar to ours, but their agendas are dense as. You cannot miss a word. And there's also a lot of backgrounding as well. So my suggestion would be that it's not fully contained in the proposal here, but really what the CEO, who's a registered nurse and a very capable woman, Heather Messenger, is asking is for, and the board is asking for, greater flexibility around the requirement to have a medical practitioner on their board. Now, they go through a skills assessment process where they look at what skills that they need on that board, and I think that we should, without anything further, I suppose we could ask them to detail more fully what that response would be, perhaps. But my suggestion would be to follow the advice of the hospital board if we aren't fully aware of it. So I certainly wouldn't move number 2. I'd be suggesting that we actually ask Heather to come and give a deputation and to answer any questions. I think that would be a better approach rather than knocking them back. And I think that would develop a much better relationship between council and the hospital. I don't think we should be moving motions where we don't necessarily understand their full reasoning for that, and I can appreciate that it's not necessarily borne out, but we should ask them for further clarification rather than to make a decision on this. I think that would push those two entities further apart. We have complete control over them, but I think it would be more polite to ask that of them rather than to move this motion. So I would suggest we vote that down.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish.
Just asked a question, I suppose, of the CEO. Obviously, you've had discussions with Ms. Messenger over this. I'm just wondering if you could maybe elaborate in terms of, their positioning.
Through Madam Mayor, certainly, our conversations have been basically along the lines of the letter that was provided, where they've stated this is about the board being able to continue to operate should the situation arise where they can only get one medical officer. My recommendation to council is that you support the recommendation that's in front of you, and we let the board, that's a skills-based board from the Burnside Hospital, provide us with their sound advice. And their sound advice at this stage is the approach they've recommended to us. My recommendation, to be clear, is for council to sit with the recommendation that was before you initially.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak or ask a question? Councillor Davey, I think you've been on the board too, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, yes, I'm sort of interested in the two sides, because I believe Councillor Hughes' motion has validity, but I understand Councillor Davis's perspective. If in terms of the recommendation, I wasn't clear about what it actually was, and I'm not sure that we shouldn't actually put, if this doesn't get up, what is actually in report number 242 of 21.
If you could just
what are we actually saying?
Just bear with me for 2 seconds. Just finding attachment A. So it refers to, if I can draw you to 7.1 of the attachment. Page 177, thank you.
I don't have anything.
So the change is on page 177, 7.1. The board must be comprised of not more than 10 members, including, and the change is at least one medical practitioner instead of 2 medical practitioners. I'm comfortable it's clear, but I'm also happy if members feel they
You can raise that again
clarify.
if this is lost anyway, Councillor Davey. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I tend to be on the same sort of line as Councillor Davis with this one, being also another person that's been on the board at one point in time. I feel that the medical practitioner's role on the board, and this is from my assessment, was more to give the board a sense of feedback from the doctors that lease the space and the surgical space as well, about the running of the board and the running of the hospital, rather than them, I suppose, be an integral part of questions and answers. It's more of a feedback loop to actually give the I suppose one of the most important tenants that lease space and get those lists, which is basically, I'm hiring your surgical bay number 1 for a 3-hour period, and then they go and slot patients into that period at that hospital because they've got that specific time in that hospital in that surgery. So I think it's more about that feedback loop, and I can understand at some points it will be difficult for that board to get some of those doctors and those medical practitioners. So I actually don't mind the at least. It gives them that room to get more than one if at one point in time they've got doctors that do want to be there, but it still has that ability with the doctors to provide that feedback loop to the board, that they might have any gripes about particular issues in the management and running of the hospital. So I'm actually in support of the officer's recommendation at the beginning. Thanks.
Councillor Henschke.
In the conversations with the hospital, the administration, you've got a sense of the balance on the board with of doctors and governance. What is your view? That's really why the hospital is looking to reduce the number of medical practitioners on the board, and perhaps so that the number of board members is less. Is that what's going on?
Through Madam Mayor, the approach that I've taken to assess whether this is appropriate is I've respected the fact that the hospital board has come to this conclusion that this is the best outcome for them. I personally don't feel that I'm qualified to second guess that board. They've got a very experienced CEO and a skills-based board, and they've made a recommendation to me, and I've got no reason to doubt it.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I thank Councillor Hughes for her motion. I think it's intended to, with the best intentions, to I guess probably having been a patient there, to expect that there is, for myself, that there is strong medical practitioner advice on the board. To answer anyone's queries, the board is very balanced. There is the very experienced CEO. There are business owners on the board. There are accountants and financial advisors. There are 2 legal advisors. There's 1 transport operator who's involved in transport logistics, who's very knowledgeable. And I think it is desirable to have 2 medical practitioners on the board. And I note Councillor Davis's contribution in terms of the difficulty that they have running very busy practices and surgery lists at being able to contribute. But I'm happy to, if this does not get up, to revert to the CEO's recommendation, and bearing in mind that the undertaking of the hospital, that they will aim for 2 medical practitioners with at least 1 on the board at a time. So I think this is made with the best intentions, but I can see the difficulties that have been raised, especially talking to the CEO. Thanks.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I'll support the motion. I think Councillor Hughes is right. I think the danger of saying 1 is you'll just have 1, and then a similar thing will happen in the future, and you'll be down to none, and they'll be coming back to us saying, can you change the constitution so we don't need any doctors on the board? This is a pretty freak circumstances, I would suggest, where they've lost a doctor from the board, which probably not going to ever happen again. And in terms of, you know, giving deputation, they were free to have a deputation. They chose not to, so that's their bad luck if they don't come here and explain the change to us. So on the basis of information I've got, I'm going to support Councillor Hughes' motion.
Just in terms of a correction, you said that it wouldn't happen again. Potentially it could at any time, because a doctor could die or be killed in a car accident, and then the dilemma is for them to resolve. So I just wanted to make that clear. Councillor Dawes, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to speak now. Yeah, I guess my forte is in the sport industry, and the industry at the moment is, you know, always want to have somebody with finance experience and somebody with risk experience, but there is a very strong view from the sport boards that you must have at least a certain number who've got sport experience, and that's what we're talking about here. Now, I refer to Heather Messenger's letter to us. Now, we're second-guessing her. She makes no mention of finding it hard to find medical practitioners. She talks about the conduct of operations and decision-making. That's her main point. So we need to go back to one. The problem with one is, even though she says we will always aim for two, in 5 or 10 years' time, Heather Messenger won't be there, I won't be here, and we'll probably forget. And also, it doesn't solve it, as I think Councillor Jones just said. If that one person dies, we're still in the same scenario as we are now with two. So, with a constitution, we need to be exact. It cannot be left to interpretation. So, in fact, I'm surprised that it's only got 2 medical practitioners. I thought there'd be more than that. And I think you'll find that medical practitioners would think that a board position on Burnside Hospital, which has got such a great reputation, would be a great CV addition. Now, the Mayor might disagree with me, but I do believe that Burnside Hospital is one of the best hospitals in Adelaide. Yeah, I'm supporting it because of my experience in other industries.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, then I shall put it up. Councillor Davey.
Question.
Yes.
Would it be better to add at 1 that council retain the current constitutional requirement of 2 medical practitioners on the board, just to make it absolutely clear? Because there's nothing in there about the board. We're talking about the constitution, but the motion needs to stand alone. Bearing in mind what Councillor Dawes has just said in terms of someone reading them in 5 years.
Right, so are you happy for me now to go back to the mover, Councillor Hughes?
I will speak very briefly because the notes that I had made, Councillor Dawes actually just pulled up. I think if you pull out the letter that we've received this week that's been sent through from the CEO, it actually talks about the driver for change, and the driver for change is not, as been mentioned this evening, that it's difficult to get those medical practitioners on the board. It's to get them out of a difficult situation where that 2 unforeseeably goes down to 1, which is, it's not, and I guess they're not trying to decrease the number of practitioners. In fact, the letter says that it remains their intention to have 2 medical officers on the board. So if that's the intention, and then that should align, I think, with the Constitution. We shouldn't just leave that to the discretion of the board, because they're not actually putting forward a recommendation as to why they should decrease to at least 1. So I think it should be retained at 2, but giving them the provision that they can act if there is an incident that's unforeseeable that comes up, because I think that's clearly their issue around how they can govern and how they can operate as a board in those unforeseen circumstances, and hence the reason for the change, because I actually read it, and similar to what Councillor Jones is saying, if you have at least one, something could still happen to that one and you'll still be in the same predicament. So that was really the only reason for the alternate motion tonight, so I hope you'll support it.
Right, those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. So we now revert to the original motion. You wish to move that, do you, Councillor Davis? Right, do you wish to speak to it? No. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hedgkey, you happy to second it? Do you wish to speak?
Do you want to put the detail in?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter?
It's a terrible motion.
Or are you happy to put this to the vote?
Can I move an amendment? Please?
That motion does
That motion actually does it.
But if you read the minute, it doesn't stand alone. My amendment is
Read the motion again.
that council approve the proposed amendments to the Burnside War Memorial Constitution outlined in attachment A to report number 24221. I think that's really bad practice and really bad governance for council minutes. With respect, I believe it should read that council approve the proposed amendments to the Burnside War Memorial Constitution, that the board must be comprised of not more than 10 persons, including at least one medical practitioner. That's the change I would make.
It's not really an amendment, so do you wish to accept that as a change or not, Councillor Davis?
I think that's more clear. That's more clear, I think.
Oh, you've moved it, you've seconded it. Advice, Councillor, Mr. Cooper?
Through the Mayor, either option is valid.
Either option is valid, okay. So, I think it's pretty clear, Councillor Davey, that that's what the item is in their constitution it's referred to. And there's no room for misinterpretation either if we stick to the letter of the law that states the item in the constitution. So I don't think you should be worried about it. Yeah.
With respect, yes, we all know that around the table, and we who've got the agenda papers in front of us. If someone reads in the minutes, they do not know what the proposed amendment is that we're talking about.
I do take your point.
It's just bad practice, sorry. It's especially to write up a recommendation this way.
Well, I won't accept that it's bad practice. However, for clarification for somebody who's reading it from outside and hasn't read the papers that precede it, it is possible that might be a good idea. Councillor Davis, I'll just ask you and Councillor Henschke to reconsider. No? Okay, that's fine. You don't want to reconsider? No. Councillor Cornish, you wish to speak?
I was just going to say, it could go for all of them, like that council receives and notes the August 2021 financial report. We're not minuting what's in that financial report. You're going to have to go to the agenda to see what that financial report was. Like, we do it all the time, where we refer to the agenda. Just saying. In our motion? Yeah, in our motions.
Very good comment, Councillor Cornish. Okay. So can we move on then? We have a mover, we have a seconder, we have had one person speak. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Yeah, I'm seeing no, well, I'm just making sure there's nobody who wishes to speak. I'm just going to ask a question. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, so what is our actual legal obligation in terms of governance and the board then, if we're making this change to the constitution as an elected body? I guess, you know, if something happens and we've fiddled with the numbers of the board, does that, you know, what risk is there to us but also to the hospital?
The risk to council is essentially zero. There's actually a greater risk if council puts a constitution in place that they can't adhere to.
The operation is exactly the same as the Pineview board. You know, if they make a decision, or even the EHA board, if they want to make the constitutional change, they make the recommendation for the change, they bring it to us, we then approve that change or go back for more information or disapprove of the change. After that, they carry the can. No. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a good question to ask and for clarification, but I've been on a few of these boards as well, so I do know what the risk is actually to the board member, not to the council. All right, Councillor Davis, I think we're ready for you to sum up.
Look, I actually think it's when you start to put an operative clause. So in my view, Councillor, it's not really relevant to the actual motion, but if you start to put operative things in the motion, that becomes the operative thing. So in my view, we should be saying, I approve an extra A as per an extra A, and then there's no variation to it. But if you leave it more open like that, not in this case, because I think that's specifically worded enough, but then that's more subject to change, because then that becomes the operative clause of make the amendment along these lines. So that might not actually be the final amendment that actually happens, if that makes sense. Like, it could be tweaked, because then the general proposition is that you're allowed to give effect to this provision. Whereas if you say, I approve it as per an extra A, then it can only be as per an extra A. And as to minutes, I don't think minutes are for the public. They're for people who need to look at minutes. You know, in my view, that if you need to look at the minutes, then you should have all the information available to you, and maybe we should force them to go and look at it more. So, but yeah, I'm happy with the motion. I believe this is the right course to go down.
All those in favour? Against? Division's been called. All those who were in favour of the motion, please stand. So I'll go around the room. Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Davis, Carbone and Hubel. And the motion is carried. Against was Hughes, Councillor Hughes, Davey, Dawes and Jones. Did you get all those down? Okay, thank you. You may. Is my intent, I know it's 10 to 9, but is my intent to try and finish 11.12, which finishes the reports before we have a break? Unless anyone objects to that, we should be able to move on straight away then. Councillor Davey to Chief Executive's report. And then I'll seek a motion for a 10-minute break.
Thank you, Your Worship. Have we got to item 11.12? I move that the Council receive and note the Chief Executive Officer report, August 2021, and 2, that the Reconciliation Action Plan be circulated to elected members before finalisation for submission to Reconciliation Australia. I note all of the work that's been done and the terrific effort that's gone in, and its landmark status. It's fantastic. But I don't believe that we should be sending a report to an outside body for endorsement before the council has seen it. So this is just to enable us to view the report and provide any comments if necessary before it's submitted to Reconciliation Australia.
Just answer that and say that we discussed this yesterday at our meeting, and it was quite clear that there is a process has to be followed that is required by Reconciliation SA for us to follow. And the decision, and what it was explained to us at the time, and I'm sorry that Ms. Taylor is not here to identify this as well, but it was made quite clear that this is the responsibility of the people you appointed to that committee. Those people who have been appointed to that committee, who were elected to be your representatives, are Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hubel, myself, Councillor Henschke and Councillor Davis. Those, we who you nominated and elected to go on to that committee are representing you, and we are following a process that has not been established by us, it's a process established by Reconciliation SA. So it is actually not practicable or the right priority for that to happen. You will get to see that reconciliation plan when it has been determined and when it has been accepted, because it's not necessarily going to be accepted by Reconciliation SA, correct me if I'm wrong. It goes to them with all of the recommendations that they require in that statement, and then it comes back to us with an approval, or they can say to us, sorry, there's some stuff here that you have to do again, or it's not right or correct, and you have to recognise it again. If at some point in time, it certainly will come to the council, but at this point in time, it's not appropriate for that to be added into this item. That's not what she asked. You've been through this process before.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, to take Councillor Davis's line of thought, that works, but you would need to remove the line before finalisation, because it suggests that it's open to amendment. So
you can see it, but you can't. Let me say that is absolutely the intent of the Reconciliation Committee, that you would all get, and that's correct, isn't it? Councillor Henschke was there yesterday. Councillor Cornish, I've not incorrectly stated anything at this point in time. It will be an opportunity for us, for everyone here to see it.
That is correct, but
yeah.
I'd probably also point out that the plan itself is pretty much provided in draft format with insert council name here, so it's their plan, their set template, depending upon the 3 phases of your reconciliation journey that you're going on. We're starting at the beginning of that journey, so it's pretty much a stock standard template, a little tinkering, but not much. Yeah.
Can I just speak to that, to say that, I mean, we are the decision-making body for council. That's what we've been elected to do. We have a whole lot of responsibilities, governance in every form under the Local Government Act, and I appreciate the way that the Reconciliation Action Plan is being developed. I would have thought that we would be able to rubber stamp it before it goes. I accept that we can't in this current iteration of how it's done, but I hope that it's something that we can endorse as a council, because I do not think we should be just rubber stamping anything that anybody tells us we need to rubber stamp for our community. Perhaps I've got it all, the interpretation wrong, but we are, I'll just repeat again, we are the decision-making body for the City of Burnside. Thanks.
I'm still not sure that, correct me, is that what we were told yesterday was able to be done? I understood it was not.
I'll speak to the motion. Are we informally chatting here?
I think you speak to the motion. You were there. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, and I don't think what Councillor Davey is asking for is unreasonable, and I think we would, you know, we're not hiding anything. We're very open to it being shown to the chamber. But also, you know, what the Mayor said was right. The developing a reconciliation action plan is a very prescribed process, particularly at the initial stages, which we are at. You know, it is 2021, but we are really doing the steps that a lot of organisations were doing over a decade ago, longer. We really are behind the ball on this. We're getting there, and this is good, it's positive, but we are very, very early on. So the type of reconciliation action plan we're doing is classified as a reflect. And the actions in it are almost entirely inward facing. They are looking at the organisation, they're looking at the way we run our programs, the way we run the administration internally, logistically, and looking to aspects of involvement, participation, consideration of First Nations culture, specifically Kaurna culture. The group is made up of elected members who the Chamber nominated, as well as Kaurna community representatives, living in and out of the city of Burnside, and staff. So where we're at is fairly prescriptive, what we're trying to do. And look, we did discuss yesterday that coming to the Chamber with it would be something that we would do after getting initial feedback from Reconciliation Australia, for the reason that nothing could really influence what was happening if it was distributed earlier. But in saying that, I don't think it would be against the tone or the feelings of the group yesterday for it to be given to the Chamber earlier. I don't feel that would be against where we were at. I mean, we did say we would share it after getting feedback, but I don't think this is in contrast to that. So I don't have a problem with this per se.
Sorry, I haven't got my microphone on. Do you wish to speak on this?
I will quickly. I did just receive a message from Farley
Oh, right.
on
Good.
it, saying that we are actually seeking conditional approval from Reconciliation Australia. The plan is developed in partnership with the Kaurna Nation. So, so that's just a slight clarification on those terms there.
I'm glad she got through to you then. Right. Good. All right. I seek you seconded it, didn't you? So is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, then I will put this back to Councillor Davey.
Just thanking everybody for their input and the stage it's got to and all their work to get to this stage. And yes, I'd love to see it as it goes to Reconciliation Australia. Thanks.
Those in favour? Against? Carried. So I seek someone who would like to have a break at this point in time. Thank you, Councillor. Seek leave of the meeting, policy, official language. Okay, seek leave of the meeting. All those in favour? 10-minute break. It's 9:03, so we start again at 13 past. We can resume. We have enough bodies sitting down. So there are no questions. Oh, the questions I noticed we didn't have any this week, did we? No questions. Harvey, Mr. Councillor Jones, we have started again. Questions on notice, we had none this week. Motions on notice, nil. Urgent or other business? Does anyone have any urgent or other business? Right, I'll move on. Confidential items are where we're moving to now. And I've just had a request that we reverse the order. So because Ms Kennedy needs to be here for 15.2 but not 1. So if that's okay with you, we will just move, we'll do 15.2 first, then she can go. Right. So, as read, yes, moving into confidential mode. As read,